Martin's face suddenly became serious, lowered his head, and looked at his infinite gems solemnly. Infinite gems are restless, and something more difficult to predict is coming. Martin groaned, and suddenly got up and looked at the outside world. Outside, countless steel buildings are rising from the ground, and countless shapeshifting diamonds are toiling like diligent worker ants, building this huge amount of planet. Martin's sight had already surpassed the limit of one planet in this area, spreading countless galaxies, but in the end, it was completely obscured by the terrifying golden light. That terrible power, even Martin, who has 4 infinite gems in his hands, still felt a heavy sense of oppression. This kind of horrible existence, if I'm not mistaken, it should be taken seriously. Martin slowly retracted his gaze. Originally, at the Mere Cosmic Summit, a group of gods got together and talked about things they didn't use as farts, which could not arouse Martin's interest at all. But now, if his guess is correct, and there is a court of life, then the information revealed behind this is too terrifying. Even Martin, no matter what kind of terrible enemy he faces, no matter what kind of terrible event in the face of 25, he knows the person in his heart, at the moment is also solemn. All because of the appearance of the Life Court. The Life Court, one of Marvel's 3 ironclad laws, is here. It certainly won't be because of me. Then, I must speed up the pace. Martin shook his head, didn't even drink the coffee, and quickly began to conceive various plans in his mind. Whether it's a movie or a manga or anime version, Marvel has 3 iron rules that can't be circumvented anyway. In a planet-level event, the Captain America shield will inevitably be broken, and Mjolnir will inevitably be lifted by new people. In the level universe event, the invincible planet devourer will corpse the starry sky first to warn those who are interested. The multivariate level universe event, no matter what it is, the Great Court of Life will die first to sacrifice to the heavens. These 3 signs are similar to the Iron Law of Marvel's Law of Causality, similar to the Kill the Flash sacrifice law of the DC next door. As long as any one of them happens, they must be serious. Now, Martin is very serious, tapping his fingers on the desktop unconsciously, and the 4 infinite gems on the back of the glove are also flashing with brilliance. Hum. A red wave of energy burst out suddenly, resounding through half of Cybertron. Martin's eyes fluctuated, with a hint of surprise and clarity, because the outbreak was too sudden and there was no sign of any form. Martin. Wanda suddenly had an unknown force erupting, and the monitoring device I deployed on her body was scrapped without any warning. Dr. Banner found Martin in a panic. Don't panic, I probably know what happened. Martin's face was calm, and there was a suddenness that he had torn open the unknown with his own hands. He got up, raised his hand to open the space-time tunnel, and to Martin's surprise, the unfavorable space-time vortex he created, at the moment actually suffered another one. This kind of power was severely rejected. He suddenly smiled and stepped directly in. Forcibly came to Wanda's side. As far as the eyes can reach, the red light in the sky and the indescribable terrible red power are continuously spreading, and the large shape-shifting diamonds around are blasted out, a mess. Wanda was in the center of the red power, with a terrible luster bursting into his eyes, and a confusion on his face at the same time. She didn't even know what happened. I don't know why, my sister suddenly became like this. Pietro ran to Martin in an instant, with a look of horror and self-blame. Martin looked up and down Wanda's current state, and said lightly, "It's not your reason, and you don't have such a great ability. You can only say that what should come will always come, but it's just sooner or later on the timeline." Martin felt the terrifying power that burst out. Ordinary people only thought it was a kind of magic, but in fact, it was Chaos Force. Phoenix Force, Chaos Force, the Force of the Fairy, are the 3 most primitive forces of multi-universe. Wanda, wake up and don't be controlled by the old dog behind the scenes. In Martin's hand, the power of the power gem suddenly exploded, hitting a purple light and forcibly tore open the red light curtain. The resulting violent explosion annihilated the entire Cybertronian star on a large scale, and a large amount of shape-shifting diamonds began to turn into dust. At this moment, Time Gem was activated, and it began to restore everything that was destroyed. Martin is just like that. It seems to be an understatement, but in fact it is to maximize the power of infinite gems and forcibly suppress the violent Wanda. Roar. Wanda suddenly raised her head, and the blood-red eyes bursting with red light were filled with a strong tyranny. To make matters worse, the pupils in both eyes had changed, becoming hollow and pale. A will different from Wanda, at the moment suddenly appeared on Wanda, straddling the gap of the endless universe, and looking at everything with an ant-like gaze. Even if Martin approached him step by step, he seemed to be like ants everywhere on the ground. Even if he was close at hand and within reach, it was still not worth his time to pay attention to. Finally, when Martin forcefully opened the incomplete chaos force barrier with the combined force of 4 infinite gems, he almost looked at the figure in front of him, his eyes cold. "The humble species, get out of my subordinate's body." Martin spoke coldly. The huge amounts of vortex burst out, and the entire Cybertronian star collapsed in an instant, that in the next instant, Martin forced everything back. The only thing that remained unchanged was Martin's aloof and indifferent face. He knew who he was facing. The god of chaos, the god of black magic, the terrifying existence of the multi-universe Megatron, one of the 4 chaos gods, and even my trinity, Emperor Weishan, must be cautious. Sithorn. But that's what he said, and it wasn't intentional. Martin stepped out, the kind of calmness that has always been the same, and at the same time a kind of arrogance from the heart. Even in the face of Sithorn, he still has a condescending look down, and there is a touch of sincerity in the arrogance. Really disdain. At this moment, when Martin was standing in front of Wanda, and uttered these words, it seemed that he was the one who was born noble and respected, and Sithorn, the coercive multi-universe, seemed to be true. Garbage and ants. The kind of gaze he was looking straight at, when he looked at Sithorn, he seemed to be looking at someone who was lucky. Shit. Finally, Martin's words seemed to cause some waves, and Sithorn finally focused his attention on Martin. Immediately, the stormy sea. "What did you just say? Something as lowly as a reptile?" Sithorn's indifferent gaze suddenly fell on Martin, and at that moment, there was a terrible burst of gloss, as if the weight of a universe suddenly accumulated on Martin. Martin sneered. The power of the 4 infinite gems burst out, and the Supreme God armor began to rapidly improve the performance of various systems. He looked indifferently, his gaze crossed Wanda's body, and finally fell into a figure surrounded by darkness. Superior. Just by looking at it, you can feel the super pressure of this person. That is a force that even a single universe cannot fully carry. I said, "You, a lowly born species, don't deserve to talk to me in my subordinate's exorcism. So lowly, what right do you have to look at me?" Martin paused and spoke slowly. "Get out, or I will pull you out of the trash in the dark." Sithorn smiled suddenly. That smile was endlessly hideous. Humanity, running rampant in the universe, seems to have given you an illusion about this world. Sithorn almost smiled sullenly, and slowly raised a finger, about to hit Martin's forehead with a single blow, the chaos force that madly gathered, with the terrible authority to modify everything. Deep inside Martin's body, the phoenix that was blocked tightly, at the moment became extremely irritable. Damn. Are you crazy?" and provoked Sithorn. Even if Emperor Weishan came, he would not treat Sithorn with this attitude. "You lunatic." The miserable little phoenix yelled. It knows too much about chaos force and definitely, which have the same specifications as its own, and is different from its own. Chaos force is complete from the beginning, and it has been obtained and mastered by Sithorn. And now, Martin, an arrogant guy, dare to speak to Sithorn? You are just a mortal, and he is a second-generation ancient god who is countless years older than you. Phoenix cursed, looking restless, struggling desperately, but he was more tightly locked by the source of fire. It doesn't want to die. Don't want to be swallowed by chaos force. But obviously, Martin is not interested in listening to a stupid bird's opinion. Boom. The coercion of horrors continues to breed, and the chaos force that emerges from Wanda, at the moment has gradually exceeded the category of Cybertron, and has a tendency to spread to the entire world tree. The court of life has come to this universe, and now you rely on Wanda to be stable to the present. Martin smiled suddenly and looked at the guy in front of him coldly. Sithorn was silent for a while, and said indifferently, "This force is enough to kill you." Ouch. Serta suddenly rushed out and slashed at Sithorn, who was occupying Wanda's body. This was a blow that could easily smash a planet. Sithorn just looked up and Serta himself was suddenly covered by a terrible red. The light flew, and even the eternal flame on his body began to go out frantically. Serta screamed sternly, and Sithorn forcibly erased everything about him. This chaos force continued to spread. After the destruction of Serta, it directly followed the connection of life and began to spread to the eternal fire. That is, it spread to Martin, but Martin just gave a cold voice. In an instant, the fire source that bound the eternal fire suddenly stirred, and directly resisted Sithorn's chaos magic. You actually still have this level of artifact on your body, no wonder you dare to be so arrogant. Sithorn let out a faint voice, showing a hint of interest. Even if it is him, I have never heard of it. There are such peculiar props in the multi-universe, and it possesses endless life and spiritual power. Such a weapon, falling into the hands of an arrogant reptile like you, is simply a waste. Dedicated to me, I will give you a decent way to die. Sithorn stretched out his hand to Martin, and the terrible chaos red light burst from his palm. Martin raised his hand and grabbed Sithorn's wrist directly. Kneel to me. Kneel and offer your chaos force to me. I allow you to become a dusty shoe licking me. This is your lifetime glory. Martin spoke slowly, with a sense of indifference in his voice, still that attitude, the arrogance carved in his bones, the gaze that regarded Sithorn as a lowly species, with a sincere heart. This time, in Sithorn's cold laughter, the murderous intent became more and more intense. Boom. Martin smashed into Sithorn's palm with one punch, and the 4 infinite gems burst out with terrible light, which instantly exceeded the boundaries of a galaxy. While powerfully smashing Sithorn's limited chaos force, it also pinched the opponent's neck. Get out of the flesh of my subordinates, you don't deserve to touch her, humble. In Martin's face, the meaning of icy cold is even bigger. Boom boom boom. The power of tearing apart specifications emerged one after another. Martin began to use his own power to attack Sithorn, weakening the opponent's upcoming, but never-ending specifications. This short but terrifying confrontation finally attracted the attention of some gods. Especially when the life cord is aware of it. Sithorn finally couldn't bear it. That face was completely gloomy, killing intent permeated, as if it could freeze the life of countless planets. You angered me, mortal, you will be tortured endlessly. As soon as he finished speaking, Martin threw out another purple brilliance, suddenly blasted over, and said, "Shut up, reptile." Sithorn let out a terrifying sneer, and the next moment, before the life cord really looked at him, he was hidden in an instant. Chaos magic power dissipated, and Wanda passed out in a coma on the spot. Martin frowned and hugged Wanda and scanned it carefully with Mind Gem to confirm that Wanda had recovered herself, but had suffered a severe mental injury and needed a period of recuperation. Fortunately, Wanda's own will has not collapsed, and he has not really become Sithorn's energy puppet. The green light flickered, and all the things that collapsed at the moment were restored to their original state. Patro, be optimistic about your sister. Martin's voice was cold, and there was a rare urgency in his eyes. Pietro took over the unconscious Wanda in a daze. In his recognition, suddenly, his sister went from violent to unconscious. Martin looked up and looked in a certain direction in the universe. Thanos, I have been waiting for you to act, don't let me down. There was a fierce light in Martin's eyes, and he almost foresaw that soon, the terrifying god of black magic would come to the right. This is also the real reason why all of the countless futures he saw from Time Gem were shrouded in terrible darkness. In the corner of the universe, the mysterious Warier star. A very desolate and remote planet under the vast territory of the Kari Empire. Even the Kari Empire itself does not bother to pay attention to this planet. The environment is extremely harsh, the temperature is extremely cold, and there are islands like lands on the endless sea. If you look closely, you will find that peculiar red figures appear on the surface from time to time. This is an indigenous creature of Warier star, a weird creature similar to a lizard, with a cruel temperament and able to travel through space. Boom. A huge amounts of spacecraft descended on this planet. The army of the Dark Quadrant has come here, full of killings. Thanos walked out of the spaceship indifferently, his muscles brewing the power of broken stars. Kill all these bugs. Thanos stared at the red creature rushing towards him with extreme enthusiasm and greed, expressionless and indifferent. Obsidian Fifth Generals started, accompanied by large energy fluctuations, and there were only a large number of dead corpses left in place. Thanos stepped on this desolate planet, the endless ocean, the blue sky, and the cold temperature, as if the whole world were the only people, full of desolation and loneliness. My master, this planet has been the territory of the Kree people a long time ago. If there are traces of the Soul Gem, it is impossible to detect it with the technology of the Kree people. General Corvus Glaive whispered. Thanos glanced at his subordinate indifferently, clearly understood the caution in his heart, and immediately stretched out his hand, jammed General Corvus Glaive by the neck, and lifted him up. You don't want to dissuade me at this time, Corvus Glaive. Thanos stared at him coldly. General Corvus Glaive's heart jumped, and he clearly felt a terrible chill. This time, Thanos really planned to kill him. Definitely, my master, I just made a small suggestion, worrying that you have been cheated. General Corvus Glaive said intermittently, wow. Thanos threw it directly into the ocean outside the island, and the icy feeling surging through his body silenced everyone. Soul Gem. As long as you can get this, everything is possible to win. Thanos snapped his fingers. Ebony Maw chanted a spell and immediately pulled the imprisoned Gamora out of the spaceship. Where is this place? Gamora looked confused. Nebula on the side happily said with a sneer, Warier. No. Why are you here? Thanos walked indifferently to Gamora, squatting down, with an indifferent expression. Soul Gem is here. I already know the secret you have hidden. I attacked your team, only captured you, and let go of yours. My companions, just to tell you that the news you have concealed is not worth mentioning to me, my daughter, you will see my success with your own eyes. Gamora's face was pale and desperate. Thanos snorted coldly, stepped forward, stepping on the dusty white ground, and finally ascended a 10,000-meter cliff. Layers of exquisitely crafted steps are straddled by Thanos. The heavy snow fell suddenly in the sky. This goose feather snow covered the entire Womer. This snow is too exaggerated and abnormal. Walking to the top, a figure shrouded in torn gray robes was standing there silently waiting for Thanos. This figure is slightly rickety, and the lowered head makes it difficult to see the face. He was draped in a tattered illusory black robe, and he was silent in the black robe. Roar screamed in the wind, snow was all over the sky, and his robe swayed wildly, but it was like a ghost, without any sound. It seems that this figure has been standing here quietly for countless years, tasting the taste of loneliness, waiting for someone. Waiting for that, confined here, walk here, Roar calls the existence of Soul Gem. When Thanos finally stepped onto the highest step, the black robe figure was awakened and slowly raised his head. Red Skull. Thanos, the last eternal titan, the man whose destiny belongs, I, Red Skull, have been waiting for your arrival. Red Skull spoke in a deep voice, as if he hadn't spoken in a long, long time. Do you know me? Thanos said coldly. Definitely, I am the gatekeeper of Soul Gem. I know every life in this universe. The Red Skull looked at Thanos quietly with a red face that looked like a skinned face. Thanos nodded noncommittently, and said, Go ahead, how can I get the Soul Gem? Red Skull buried his head deeply, maintaining a humble attitude. But in his heart, he yearned for Thanos to get Soul Gem more than anyone else. With the master of Soul Gem, he can get out of trouble, leave this damn place, return to Earth, and fight his old rival Captain America. This damn infinite gems coaxed him. Back then, it gave him the hope of ruling the Earth, but kicked him into a deeper abyss with the last kick, directly teleporting him to Warier, and his soul was also enslaved by infinite gems. Infinite gems abandoned him and became the unlucky person almost like a waiter. A power greedy for gems, even once possessed in infinite gems, but was eventually imprisoned on this desolate planet forever, year after year, waiting for the existence of Soul Gem. Waited till now. He was imprisoned by this damn Soul Gem for more than 70 years. Although he knew a lot of secrets that he would not know his whole life through Soul Gem, but this is not important. In the face of freedom, secrets are nothing at all. He stared at Thanos' figure, and he waited too long for this moment. You can't give infinite gems to this butcher. Gamora was dragged along by the nebula, and at the moment he yelled angrily at the Red Skull. The Red Skull looked calm, leading Thanos to the cliff, and said lightly, Soul Gem is the most special of all gems. It hates all mediocre lives. If you want to get it, you have to pay a price. The Red Skull stood beside Thanos, and a low and steady voice came into Thanos' ears. Thanos said indifferently, What does Soul Gem want? Red Skull said, The thing the Soul Gem asks for is very simple, it is a soul. One soul is exchanged for a soul. This is fair. If you want to get it, you must dedicate the soul of your beloved to the Soul Gem. Red Skull's voice was calm. Everyone turned their heads to look at the Red Skull, with a thick strangeness in their eyes. Let the butcher of the universe, this guy named Thanos, dedicate the soul of his beloved? Beloved? How could their owner have such ridiculous emotions? Suddenly, the 5 Obsidian generals, together with Nebula, the vague greed and desire for Soul Gem in their eyes, at the moment suddenly disappeared. Originally, they were still thinking in their hearts whether they should preempt Thanos and grab Soul Gem in one fell swoop. They will have the power to surpass Thanos in an instant, and they can easily kill Thanos. But now, the soul of a loved one. Don't be kidding, the upper level of their dark quadrants doesn't have such a thing at all. A hint of meaning also flashed in Red Skull's eyes. He is the conspirator who created Hydra with one hand, and he has the most accurate control of the human heart. At the moment, he looked at Thanos with an inquiring in his eyes, as if he had found a fun toy. A last titan who came for a great ideal, a guy who is burdened by the future but feared by countless people, what will he do now? If you don't choose, there will never be a chance to come back again. When the guy named Martin finds Warier, he will definitely use various means to obtain Soul Gem, and Thanos will never have a chance again. Gamora suddenly laughed, with carefree. I have been waiting for this day, watching your dream shattered with my own eyes. Nebula immediately fell into rage and drew his sword directly at the red skull. Damn thing. You did it on purpose, right? This is a lie. No, this is fair and very reasonable. Soul Gem has its own will. If you offer what it wants, you can leave here. Red Skull said lightly, and at the same time, looked at the silence like a rock. Thanos, moreover, Thanos is ready to dedicate someone he loves to Soul Gem. Thanos stood at the forefront, overlooking the cliff below, with his back facing everyone. The heavy snow came over, and soon, Thanos was covered with snowflakes. On both sides of him, there were countless giant stone pillars rising from the ground. At this moment, they seemed to be watching Thanos, waiting for his decision. A drop of tears slipped from the eye sockets of this cosmic butcher and drifted in the wind. Father? Nebula looked at Thanos incredulously. Together with the 5 obsidian generals, at the moment all looked astonished. Beloved, this kind of ghost, Thanos will have? Thanos turned around. Tears have already burst into tears. His eyes moved, slowly, and fell on Gamora. Gamora was stunned, and his face changed suddenly. No. This is impossible. How can a monster like you? No. Sorry, daughter. Thanos grabbed Gamora's arm, then dragged her hard and threw her off the cliff. The expression on Gamora's face was frozen forever, with a deep confusion. Even to death, she still didn't believe it. Thanos, whom she regarded as the enemy, the butcher who dreamed of killing, the most loved one, was actually she. There was a soft bang. Everything is frozen in this scene. In an instant, the countless stone pillars on both sides suddenly burst into bright brilliance, and went straight to the sky. In a sudden, there is a latent power awakening and responding to Thanos. Thanos, you got the Soul Gem, and you have the power to reverse this universe. The most crazy performance was the Red Skull. He laughed almost madly, clearly feeling that the shackles that bound him were disappearing, and he was getting free. Everything was shrouded by this terrifying light. An endless force directed at the soul, at the moment suddenly broke out, drowning them all. Thanos suddenly opened his eyes and his consciousness returned. He looked around vigilantly, but found that he was already standing in a puddle. A little girl with green skin was looking at him quietly. Daughter? Thanos whispered Roar softly, like a father calling a child in Roar. You got the Soul Gem, you succeeded. The young Gamora spoke and looked at him quietly. Yes, as long as you can get the Soul Gem, Thanos whispered. Getting the Soul Gem. What are you going to do? Go to Martin to snatch other infinite gems? I will look for the reality gem, and then. No, this won't work. Even if you find the reality gem, you won't be able to win based on strength alone. Gamora shook her head slightly. At this moment, Thanos understood that the person in front of him was no longer his beloved daughter. Who are you? Thanos looked at each other indifferently. The young Gamora said in a hurry. Soul Gem is the most special gem. It has its own will, and it can also faintly interfere with other infinite gems. Thanos, you want to win. Think to realize your ideals and save the future destiny of this universe. Soul Gem is the key to your final victory. Thanos' eyes became colder and colder, and a cold light flashed under his eyes. You will understand one day, the fate belongs to Thanos. Gamora's voice just fell. A power from the soul emerged from Thanos, covering all the sights. When he wakes up again, there is already a beautiful orange stone in his palm, lying quietly, exuding a dazzling brilliance that fascinates the soul. Soul Gem. There was a rare numbness in Thanos' eyes, his palms thick and bloody, at the moment slowly gathered and clenched. This is the result of his daughter's life. No one knows the pain in his heart. At the moment, he personally sacrificed the daughter he raised to Soul Gem, just to gain the strength to realize his ideals. The price is too heavy, so heavy that even if the will is firm as Thanos, Roar sucks quickly and can't breathe at the moment. No matter which god is reminding me, but I have my own plan. Thanos took a deep breath and regained his cold face. His heart became cold-blooded again. Roar. The blue space-time vortex suddenly appeared in Warier, precisely in front of Thanos. A tall and straight figure walked out of the whirlpool, wearing a peculiar glove on his right hand. On the glove, there were 4 shiny infinite gems. This is our first meeting, Thanos. Martin walked slowly over, then stopped 10 meters in front of Thanos. His gaze fell on the orange gem in Thanos' hand. Thanos looked at Martin, who seemed to have been waiting for a long time, and there was a slight shock on his face. Why did you know that Soul Gem is in Warier? Thanos' face was gloomy. There is no reason, I just know. Martin showed off his gloves. The 4 rays of light and the orange rays of Soul Gem, intertwined, faintly. There is a frequency that only exists between infinite gems, shaking each other. I don't care what those decadent gods say to you, and I'm not interested in paying attention to your inner thoughts. I'll just tell you one thing. Die here, Thanos. Martin stared at the soul gem in Thanos' hand, and the fluctuations in his eyes revealed an undisguised possessiveness. Soul gem. You need to give the soul of your loved one to get it, is the most unpredictable and difficult to obtain infinite gems, but obviously, Thanos helped him get it. All he has to do is to kill Thanos, and then put soul gem grab it back. You have what belongs to me in your hand, Thanos. Martin raised his right fist, and there was a depression on the magnetic glove immediately. He even thought about where to place the soul gem after grabbing the soul gem. I am the destiny of this universe, Martin, and the one who can win in the end must be me. Thanos took a deep breath. Facing Martin, who had brought him great pressure, his face finally showed a trace of dignity. He held the soul gem tightly, and obtained as much soul gem's power as he could. This was his resistance. Martin's only reliance. Otherwise, he is just a mere level sub-godfather, and he has no power to fight back in front of Martin. The bright orange light flickered, as if there was life, lingering around Thanos, flying and dancing like a lively elf. The breath of the soul emerges from the soul gem. Die, Thanos, I will bury your body in a farm, and let the sun and flowers be with you. Martin shook his head, leaving aside his independent standpoint. At least the Thanos in front of him is one of the few guys who can make him face up and admire him. It has nothing to do with strength, it is purely that kind of lofty ideal. Such Thanos is definitely the most admirable one compared to those stupid Thanos who lick death frantically at every turn. Boom. 4 rays of light surged, wrapping Martin around, and he moved. The scary purple light suddenly burst out, turning into a scary purple beam of light, with an absolute strength level of crushing, and suddenly attacked Thanos. At the same time, Martin himself had a cold face and stepped out to kill Thanos himself. This time, Thanos must die. I am the destiny, no one can kill me, neither can you. Thanos roared, the orange light flashed, and the majestic soul power suddenly burst out, sheltering Thanos, the kind of strange power that purely blessed the soul, and gave Thanos the ability to control the soul. He quickly flashed the power of the power gem, the orange light flashed, and began to spread in a large area, endless energy ripples burst out, and in an instant, the smaller half of Warier was covered. The endless pure soul power swept away everything in an instant, but all the lives swept inside felt a strange feeling. It was a kind of, as if I wanted to devote my whole body to this soul power in the feeling. The master got the soul gem, but with whom is he fighting? Martin. But how did that guy know about the remote planet Warier, and how could he land here so coincidental? The army in the Dark Quadrant, at the moment, was on the other side of Warier, feeling the terrifying power of the soul, trembling. The most crazy performer is Supergiant. She knows better than anyone what this kind of soul power means. This means that as long as Thanos thinks about it, all of them will have their souls modified without being aware of them, and they will be completely replaced with new wills. This is an extremely terrifying power. The Red Skull stayed quietly in the Dark Quadrant army. At the moment, he took off his hood and looked at the terrifying brilliance in the distance in the ground under his feet. At the moment, he trembled violently. This terrible power made him obsessed. Back then, if he had this kind of power, he would have ruled the earth with Hydra long ago. Thanos must have got the soul gem. Although there was an accident, he must be the final winner because soul gem is inclined to him. The Red Skull's voice was calm. Obsidian V will stare at the Red Skull indifferently, but because he really doesn't understand the current half-ghost and half-physical state of the Red Skull, the strong malice is not revealed. Regarding this, Red Skull knew it clearly and sneered in his heart. If you give him time, these idiots on Obsidian 5, he can play alive. Everyone is waiting for the result of this battle, but the planet under their feet has begun to gradually collapse. Mind gem swept away. The yellow light confronts the orange of the soul, the heart and soul are cut, and the spirit ocean burst out at the moment suddenly spread out to the entire universe. Boom. Martin slammed his fist and slammed it on Thanos' face, and in a sudden, he slammed Thanos into the core of the earth. If you want to use soul gem to modify my soul, I advise you to give up. Martin sneered again and again. The role of the soul gem is not to attack like a power gem, but to directly modify and twist the soul. In principle, all life in this universe must be under the soul gem and will be affected by the soul gem's soul modification. But for Martin, Thanos rushed out in blood, with a large magma on his body. At the moment, he roared and immediately clenched his fist and punched Martin Yao. In an instant, this soul gem finally found the opportunity, and the power of the soul burst out, crossing the boundaries of countless time and space dimensions, and suddenly fell on Martin, and began to spread wildly, intending to cover Martin's soul. At this moment, Mind Gem's power suddenly stopped, as if being interfered by a higher power, and failed to completely block this corrective force directly acting on the soul. Martin quickly lowered his head and stared at his Mind Gem. Thanos stood on the ground embarrassedly, spouting a mouthful of blood, panting quickly. Become my assistant to realize my ideals. Martin and Soul Gem are all on my side. They don't want to see you win. I am the destiny. He almost saw the scene where Martin's soul was modified. Martin's will would be modified to Thanos' ideal, and Martin's pursuit would be changed to Thanos' goal. At this moment Thanos, flames were burning in his pupils. He was almost killed by Martin and finally waited until this moment. Soul Gem burst out with a terrible luster again, and every power burst out, and he simply broke free from Thanos' palm, and flew directly into the air, where its power covered all of Martin's coverage. This is Thanos' will, and it is Soul Gem's own will. Seeing Martin is covered by the full power of Soul Gem, the soul is about to be modified. Interestingly, you are a Soul Gem, but you are interfering with other infinite gems. I am very interested in you. I really want to see you being destroyed by my own hands, and your will is cruelly divided into countless parts at the moment. I won't regret it. Martin slowly raised his head, with a terrible calm in his voice. He watched the Soul Gem bursting out with all his strength, and felt that his 4 infinite gems had been interfered with by a certain vague will, and he couldn't act like a commander. When the land is used. At last, his fangs were exposed. Looking at Thanos, who was seriously injured, and the Soul Gem that seemed to come alive, Martin suddenly smiled. This smile is so cruel. Do you think I don't know the use of Soul Gem? Do you think I will have no defense? Do you think that Soul Gem, as the most special one, is really invincible? Martin smiled cruelly, and a huge force surged out of his body immediately, strongly resisting the intervention of Soul Gem's soul. The black cube, the artifact called the Fire Source, contains countless lives and spiritual powers, and inside it is the endless shapeshifting diamond soul. The Fire Source is not only the source of life for the shapeshifting diamonds, but also the cemetery of the shapeshifting diamonds. For every shapeshifting diamond that died, their extinguished fire will return to the source of fire. Compared with such a powerful fire source, the mere Soul Gem is almost meaningless. At least, Soul Gem's authority to control the souls of all life in the universe still cannot affect the countless souls in the Fire Source, let alone Martin. Because Martin and shapeshifting King Kong were originally not native products of this universe. Martin's gaze focused, and he came to his soul world in a flash. The orange light swarming from all directions, with a kind of disgust and rejection, driven by a vague will, intends to modify Martin's soul. The so-called destiny is so important to you. When you are obsessed with something ridiculous like destiny, you are restricting yourself. But it doesn't matter, you are just a cheap tool anyway. Martin smiled. Tools, you must have the consciousness of the tools. Even the Soul Gem specification, infinite gems with self-awareness and desire, is still just a tool. People like Martin never talk about feelings with a tool. Martin, you need to be corrected. Your origins are unknown. The countless souls you have are also from unknown origins. They are not part of this universe at all, but you can hide it from me. Even I could not find you. Anything wrong. In the dark, in Martin's soul world, countless orange rays of light converged and turned into an orange gem, confronting Martin's will. This is its purpose. With the help of Thanos, he invaded Martin's soul, corrected Martin and the countless shapeshifting King Kong, and truly became a soul that could be affected by it. As long as you are corrected by me, the destiny of this universe will be you. In the next millions of years, you will be able to enjoy the closeness of the universe to you, and your wishes will come true. Even the oldest cosmic gods, if you give in, even if it is me, you are willing to obey your will, and you will become the true supreme god. Soul Gem's stiff voice came out, but with a kind of bewitching directly aimed at the soul. Martin felt his slight imperceptible agitation, and the smile on his face was even brighter. I have a better idea. Martin said. Destroy your arrogance, completely kill your self-consciousness, forcibly unify all the forces of this universe, high above. I will kill whoever dares to talk about destiny. The universe originally dared to talk. Then I will destroy this. The universe will kill hundreds of millions of lives and smash countless planets. Destiny? Sorry, I, Martin, have always been hard-hearted and unbelieving. Talking about destiny, then I will destroy all things related to destiny, leaving me, not destiny but also destiny. You will regret this. There was a wave of Soul Gem, and immediately, the endless orange sea boiled and roared, and it was about to rush into Martin's soul in one fell swoop, snatching the countless shapeshifting King Kong souls that were sleeping. To put it bluntly, Soul Gem's self-awareness also covets these peculiar mechanical lives, but it is not just the possessiveness and the rule of its own operation. It instinctively felt that if it could take away the authority of these souls, even a little bit, it would undergo a qualitative change and could see a whole new field. In fact, Soul Gem's desire is right. The fire source is all-encompassing, not to mention, a trace of fire from the mighty 13 apostles can also be found in the fire source. Even, going back to the more ancient source again, maybe you can capture a trace of Yuan Shi Tianan's information, which can be imagined for the value of Soul Gem. But it is a pity that Soul Gem has touched a field far beyond its level and specifications after all. Martin sneered. In an instant, the source of fire suddenly appeared from Martin's soul. On this black cube, complex patterns immediately appeared. As the pinnacle creation of the technological side and the soul side of Cybertron's civilization, the level that burst out in an instant, it smashed the orange ocean that swept over. The ghosts of countless souls emerged. That is the fire of countless shapeshifting King Kong. At the moment, stimulated by Soul Gem, it is fleeting. A special soul battle broke out. Soul Gem even went into battle in person, but faced with too many fire sources higher than it, from the very beginning, it was in a dilemma. What the hell is this? A completely strange law, a completely strange soul. Even if it comes from a parallel universe, it would be too strange. Soul Gem keeps jumping in the orange ocean, and every flicker can cause a terrible tsunami of light. But the source of fire is as stable as a rock, and will not be affected in any way. Soul Gem's consciousness finally knew that something was wrong. It provokes existence far beyond its imagination. You will definitely fall into my hands and become my powerful tool. You can't run away. Martin sneered and drove the fire source into a brutal collision. In an instant, a terrifying force burst out of the fire source, with a strong and domineering force, and was used by Martin to brutally sweep all the orange oceans. Violent soul friction suddenly occurred, and the soul ocean created by Soul Gem was completely annihilated. Even if it had the top soul authority in this universe, it was still far behind Martin's fire source. Boom. A terrible soul wave exploded, flying out the real Thanos on the spot. What happened? Thanos lowered his head with a sullen face, and looked at the Soul Gem in his palm in disbelief. At this moment, the luster on the Soul Gem, extremely dim. It seemed to have been hit hard. It's very simple, it failed, and I succeeded. Martin walked towards Thanos step by step, and the 4 infinite gems renewed their brilliance, controlling Thanos in an instant. Immediately, Martin raised his hand and placed it on Thanos' wrist, lightly exerting force in the anger and shock of the opponent's gaze. Click it. Thanos' wrist was broken off by Martin on the spot, and the Soul Gem, bathed in blood, splashed with bright red blood, was held directly in his hand by Martin. Boom. Martin kicked out, like kicking a clutter in the way, kicking the severed Thanos out, with a pair of eyes, focusing on the Soul Gem that fell into his hands. This is Soul Gem. Congratulations, it fell into my hands. Martin whispered, sneered even more, stretched out his left hand, gently pinched the dull orange stone, and slowly placed it on the magnetic glove. In an instant, the rays of light resembling lightning suddenly burst out, triggering huge amounts of waves, and a terrible energy storm soared into the sky. The moment the Soul Gem was mounted, it immediately reacted with the other 4 gems, vibrating with a peculiar energy frequency, and in the mutual connection, it suddenly began to connect. The 5 gems suddenly burst out of light that shook the entire universe, and the terrifying energy beams, after their energy resonance was completely connected, they showed a geometric multiplier. In an instant, the terrifying force that almost distorted the entire universe's rule, all the blessings went to Martin. Bang bang bang. Martin's face showed a hint of invigoration, feeling the energy index and terrifying coercion 25 that blessed him, which could easily crush countless galaxies. The leaked trace made the entire planet of Warmy come to an end. The end. Magma erupts and earthquakes occur frequently. Martin himself has been shrouded in 5 terrible extreme lights, a suit shakes violently, and his black hair is dancing wildly in the energy hurricane. Countless rules are controlled by Martin, and endless energy is possessed by Martin. Only at this moment, Martin's gaze overlooks the edge of the entire universe, facing the countless cosmic gods who raised their heads in horror. At this moment, all the cosmic gods seem to perceive terrifying eyes on them. It was a cold, unfeeling overlook. These superlative universe gods, at this moment, were actually given a condescending look down by Martin, as if in an instant, they changed from gods to ants, and Martin was the supreme being who was supposed to look down on them. After a long silence, My grandson, Thanos, he failed, and his destiny was ultimately lost to reality. Cronus, the god of time, said calmly. The other cosmic gods glanced at each other and did not speak. Finally, after a while, Eternally said indifferently, "It's a pity that Thanos failed to realize our vision. He was defeated by a special guy at the critical moment when he should have succeeded. That guy has already won the first place. With 5 infinite gems, no one can suppress him anymore." Many cosmic gods couldn't help but look at the Court of Life. But the Life Court just looked into the distance, as if observing something seriously, and was not interested in the dispute between Martin and Thanos, the 2 little ants. This made many cosmic gods discouraged. Then, some cosmic gods began to withdraw from this summit where there was no uselessness. Frog. Where are you going? A god asks. Observer Frog said, I regret attending this boring meeting. I should follow Martin to record his growth. You will be killed by him. No, in fact, I have dealt with him and talked with him not long ago, and he would be happy to have a guy like me by his side to record his great achievements. Frog 2 left a sentence and immediately hurried towards Warmir's direction. He really regrets it. Why waste time in this shit meeting? Besides letting him take a look at the life court and the incompetence of the gods, what else? Gradually, more universe gods left. There are only 5 gods in the court of life. Martin's matter is not worth paying attention to. As long as I act, Martin will be judged by him in an instant. Now, there are more tricky guys coming. The life court opens. The 5 gods looked at the life court with serious eyes. The planet devourer is already hungry. He is a god who likes to eat the planet of life. The opening of this shit summit has severely affected his eating, and hunger is torturing his sanity. Galactus was going crazy. An enemy from a multi-universe. Since it can shock you, please take care of the enemy immediately. Galactus roared anxiously. The life court said indifferently, this is also the purpose of my coming here. Even if there are countless universes apart, I can smell the heavy sins from the other side. He will definitely accept a fair trial. The strongest of the 5 gods, Annihilation, at the moment nodded and said, in this case, your honorable life tribunal, please take action to defeat the enemy, and we will try to solve Martin's threat. In fact, our goal for Martin, he doesn't know anything, let alone what he wants through infinite gems. Well, as long as I act, there is no god who can't judge. The court of life finally moved, and the golden body that seemed to support a universe was already standing outside the scope of this universe as soon as it stepped out. It's worthy of being a court of life, it's far from being an existence I can chase. Seeing this scene, Annihilation made a heartfelt admiration. Among the 5 gods, eternity symbolizes eternal time, infinity represents infinite space, death is in charge of the end, and Galactus is responsible for creation and destruction. If the above 4 represent the 4 frontal areas, and cover all of the frontal, then Annihilation is terrible, and he himself represents all the opposites. The annihilation of 1 is equivalent to the 4 opposites of eternity, infinity, death, and Galactus added together. In other words, in terms of specifications and levels, eternal and other 4 creation gods are added together to have a volume that can be equivalent to Annihilation. This is also the reason why Annihilation is so terrible. The other 4 creation gods are on the multi-level universe, and Annihilation is the super-universe level that surpasses the multi-level universe. To Oblivion, multi-universe is a very ridiculous gadget. It can play with multi-universe at will like a glass bead. But even so, facing the court of life, he has to admit that he is far from the level of Almighty Universe level. Almighty Universe level is the true omniscience and omnipotence. A single will is enough to easily rewrite the endless world. Running track. Especially, seeing the life court leave so confidently, Annihilation felt immensely relieved. Although I don't know the origin of this person, his justice and strength are unique and trustworthy. Even the infinite reticence couldn't help but say a word at this time. The 5 gods looked at the golden back of the court of life quickly leaving, and the stalwart revealed on the other's wide back made them feel a kind of transcendent confidence. As long as the life court takes action, there will be no undead enemies. Warmier Star. With the power of 5 infinite gems, Martin directly saw the scene of the cosmic summit. He saw a cosmic god with his own eyes, and hurriedly left under his gaze. Except for a frog chart focusing on diary writing, at the moment was rushing towards him, Martin looked at the other guys with a sneer. Martin became more serious only when he saw the life court personally dispatched, extremely powerful, and leaving behind a terrifying power beyond countless universes. He stepped on the Warmier Star, blue, yellow, green, purple and orange, and the light of 5 infinite gems soared into the sky, shaking the entire universe. Martin was bathed in divine light. At this moment, he is more than ever before. Like a true god. 5 infinite gems directly brought about qualitative changes. Thanos panted quickly, looking at Martin, who was surrounded by 5 lights, even if his conviction was as firm as him. At the moment, there was endless confusion in his heart. Lost. It was a complete failure. Even if he sacrificed his beloved daughter and got the Soul Gem, even Soul Gem would take the initiative to communicate with him and personally help him against Martin. But still lost. His life's hard work, his dream that he exhausted everything to realize, at the moment was defeated by this cruel reality. Why do you seem to know everything? Because of Time Gem. Thanos staggered to his feet. At the moment, his condition was extremely bad, half of his face was smashed, one was broken, and his whole body was covered with terrible wounds. He was unwilling, and didn't even know how he lost. Martin walked towards the cosmic butcher step by step. Thanos roared and hit Martin's face with a fist, but this punch seemed to hit the hardest barrier. Martin raised his hand and swiped. The blue light flashed. Thanos' other arm was cut off. I have a broader vision than you, and only for this reason, Thanos, when you are still struggling with a universe, I have begun to pay attention to its multi-universe. The perception between you and me is infinite. Martin kicked Thanos' calf and kicked him directly with a bang. When his whole body was roaring and his body was out of balance, Martin grabbed Thanos' ears and stared at him indifferently. In the next life, don't waste time. Martin whispered, and immediately, he stopped giving Thanos a chance to speak, and directly cut off Thanos' head with the space gem. Thanos' wide-open eyes were full of bloodshot eyes, still with a deep unwillingness and anger, and his long frozen eyes looked straight at the lonely sky. Thanos, dead. Martin threw another fist, the purple light flashed, and the power of the power gem gushed out, smashing Thanos' corpse completely and destroying it from the atomic level. 5 infinite gems, this power is really fascinating, but it's still not enough. Martin groaned for a moment, lifted his foot into the space-time vortex, and disappeared in place. This planet has no value anymore. The moment Martin left, the entire Warier exploded on the spot, and the sudden explosion of the planet made the hurried Carry Empire exploration fleet directly rushed into the air. So, what on earth is there on Warier for Thanos and Martin to fight there? Is it really infinite gems? The high levels of the Carry Empire regretted that their intestines were all green, and the Supreme Ruler, that is, the highest wisdom, as an artificial intelligence, regretted that even the rigorous logical thinking was disordered. Warier, do you actually have infinite gems? They ruled the Warier star for hundreds of thousands of years, but they just didn't notice it at all. Cybertron. As soon as Martin appeared, there were already a large number of Cybertron executives waiting for him. 5 infinite gems, you really did it. Dr. Banner looked shocked, and rushed forward, holding Martin's right hand obsessively, and looking at the 5 shining gems on it. His research soul as a scientist is burning. Yes, I did it. In the entire universe, no one is my opponent. If I don't consider the longer-term future, I am already the supreme god. Martin smiled and nodded, his gaze moved, looking at everyone present, and finally his gaze fell on Wanda. Wanda looked cramped and panicked. Ambulance? My Lord Creator, the powerful magic power in Ms. Wanda still exists, but the good news is that compared to before, it has become more controllable. It seems that the source of chaos magic power was pushed back by you. The ambulance said immediately, and at the same time handed over a lot of data. Martin glanced, then swept Wanda with Mind Gem and Soul Gem, then nodded. Sorry, I don't know why I became that way. Suddenly there was a voice in my head, and then I didn't know anything. Wanda looked horrified. Suddenly lose consciousness, and then become another person. Your willpower is too weak, and you were taken advantage of by the god of black magic. Don't worry, it didn't cause irreversible disaster anyway. Martin didn't care. In fact, when Wanda ran away, Cybertron didn't know how many shapeshifting King Kong had been killed. Martin used the time gem to reverse the time and rescued them all. Martin looked up suddenly. All the people in the shapeshifting King Kong also turned their heads, their faces changed wildly, especially the shapeshifting King Kong, and the energy monitoring system in the body was in chaos. The strength index that was transmitted from afar was no longer what they could measure. In the distance, at the end of the universe, in the unknown realm beyond the end, endless golden rays of light emerged. In the twinkling, the terrible pressure that erupted, instantly spread countless universes. And Martin saw with his own eyes that in the many nearby universes outside this universe, some unlucky ones were simply destroyed on the spot by this terrible fluctuation. Roar. An angry roar came faintly, above the countless rules, and was heard by many powerful gods. All beings have a solemn expression. The 5 great creation gods even shot directly and began to use their own strength to stabilize the universe, trying their best to calm the terrible aftermath. It is conceivable that in the multi-universe outside the universe, how terrible wars have erupted, the universe is so fragile. Martin showed off his gloves and activated 5 infinite gems at once, and began to stabilize the violent tremors of the universe, repairing the broken laws one by one, which was nothing to him. But even so, there are still a large number of planets directly destroyed by this aftermath. There are results, Martin said lightly, looking into the distance. All the top gods of the universe, at the moment, their faces were solemn and panic, and they looked in a certain direction. Boom. On the cosmic barrier, a huge amount of gap was knocked out by something unknown. A golden body rammed in sideways, covered with terrible scars that would corrode even the rule. On this golden body shining with nobleness and endless stalwart, at the moment, it wanders feebly in the dark universe, without any breath of life. The life cord is dead again. When he saw the corpse of the cord of life drifting in the deep space of the universe, Martin's body shook, and his eyes suddenly became sharp. Marvel's iron law. Galactus for small things, big things to death in court. The life cord is now lying down, and the sacrifice to heaven is successful, and the proper multi-level universe event has not run away. Which god's body is that? The many King Kong present looked at the starry sky of the universe and looked at the place where the golden light dissipated. Even though the scars are densely dead, they still exude majestic and noble golden corpses. The Court of Life is the most capable guy in the universe right now. Even if he is dead, things are really tricky. Martin looked into the distance, a little serious. The power of 5 infinite gems enveloped Martin and gave him super strong specifications. He stepped out directly, and in the next second, he came to the corpse of the Court of Life. One after another, the universe gods arrived. They first gave Martin a jealous look, walked away from a distance, and then carefully observed the life court. Looking at the huge corpse of the life court, all the black worms all over, the scalp of all the gods is tingling. This is black magic condensed to the extreme, and Sithorn did it. A celestial group took a closer look, said something, and immediately stretched out a mechanical finger and carefully touched the remaining power on the corpse of the Court of Life. In the next moment, he was swallowed by this terrifying force. The whole body was enveloped by the horrible black magic, and even the screams were corrupted before they even had time to make a scream. Pity, Martin whispered, looking at the overly curious celestial group with some regret. In fact, at the moment when he saw these gods, the fire source in Martin's body was a little eager, and he really planned to rush to revitalize these guys into his own shape-shifting King Kong. After all, these celestial groups are all mechanical bodies, and they are born to be completely defeated by Martin. In the end, Martin suppressed the restlessness and refocused his attention on the life court. The remaining celestial group only felt the pressure on their bodies reduced and their ferocious eyes shifted. Even the Court of Life is dead, it seems that Sithorn is the real body dispatched, Annihilation whispered. The faces of many cosmic faces are solemn. The god of black magic, the god of chaos, the Sithorn of the multi-level universe, the terrifying pressure on the face, these cosmic gods can't breathe. The 5 gods are okay, they are just a group of duplications on the body, and it doesn't matter if they die. But the other cosmic gods had their faces greenish and even more panicked. They didn't have duplication, they were the main body, and they were really dead when they died. As for its own peers in other parallel universes, that's just a peer, not the real self. I want to find a way to stop the terrible Mephisto of Sithorn. The life court is dead, and we still have 5 great creation gods. We must be able to stop each other. Unfortunately, we are not Sithorn's opponents. Eternal speak directly, shattering many people's illusions. Gradually, a god turned his gaze to Martin. You have 5 infinite gems, and become the first person to have so many infinite gems since the birth of this universe. Go away, I don't need anyone to teach me what to do. Martin's voice was indifferent, and he focused more on the life court. The collector who made a sound was choked, hated in his heart, but he didn't dare to speak. Because Martin would really kill him on the spot, and the cosmic elders would not stand for him. All the gods are caught in huge amounts of anxiety and panic. Some guys are already calculating how to escape. As long as the speed is fast enough, they can quickly escape from this universe and run to other universes. They can live well, at least survive. If Sithorn is targeted, the end may be worse than death. Martin looked at the corpse of the Court of Life and was silent for a moment. He was about to use the space gem to move the corpse away, but the next moment, the corpse began to collapse, and countless black magic emerged inside. After the Court of Life was completely wiped out, it began to spread wildly. Martin burst back and threw a divine light directly, defeating all the black magic that had hit him. He looked around, watching the scene where the many cosmic gods were left behind by the black magic of Sithorn, and he shook his head suddenly. What are you going to do? Death came quietly by his side, still in that mature and slim image. At the moment he was staring at him with wide eyes. Martin said indifferently, "As definitely going to do it my way, or do you have a better plan? Just listen to it." Death covered her mouth and laughed softly, but there was a deep chill in her eyes. Sithorn is a cruel fellow, and the universe destroyed by him is countless, and the only reason he did this is because for entertainment, he likes to see countless lives wailing in his shadow. It is not a good phenomenon that our universe is stared at by this terrible Mephisto. Martin, I am dead originally. It doesn't matter if I die, but can you die? Death went away with a soft smile, dissipating into the distance. The other 4 creation gods also glanced at Martin, with a meaningful look in their eyes. You have a chance to save this universe. If you really do it, you will undoubtedly become the darling of the entire universe. In the future, everything in this universe is yours, and you can really do what you want. Eternal whispered a word and left. Soon, only Martin remained in the place. His eyes were deep, standing quietly in this vacuum, watching the endless stars, watching the joy, anger, sorrow, and joy of billions of lives. Huh. Do you regard me as the conqueror, as the savior? Martin sneered suddenly. His will is stronger than infinite gems. No one or God can shake him. If he wants to do something, there is no doubt that it must be his own need to do it. Sithorn, the god of multiple-level universe aloft. Martin laughed and really laughed. This is the first time he has had the opportunity to face the existence of multi-level combat power. Although the shadow in front of him seems insurmountable like a giant mountain, if Martin decides to cross over, he will want to do it by all means. He collected infinite gems for this purpose. Those cosmic gods thought that I collected infinite gems to dominate the universe. When the overlord of a universe, there is a fart. A wave is thrown at random in the multi-universe, and even humans in the universe will be ruined. The overlord is worthless, they all look down on me too much. Martin's smile enlarged, stepped out one step, and in the next second, he was within the scope of the world tree. What does it mean to be the overlord of the universe? When the overlord of the entire multi-universe, it's a bit worth seeing. So, the 6th infinite gems, it's time to show up. Martin slowly turned his wrist, time gem lit up, and began to modify the timeline of the entire world tree. All the gods looked at him too low, and directly set Martin on Martin with their existing vision, and once firmly believed that their vision was the limit Martin could see. However, Martin never regarded them as targets from the very beginning. These cosmic gods, after all, are just pebbles that Martin is staring at. If not paving the way for Martin to go forward, Martin didn't even bother to look at them. At this moment, Martin looked down at the entire world tree and slowly stretched out his hand. The time gem suddenly lit up, and in an instant it shrouded the partial time of the entire world tree. Then, Martin began to spur the power of the time gem and began to frantically modify the timeline of the world tree. All the time is passing, and the countless life forms in the world tree system are changing rapidly like videotapes. At this moment, the gap between the gods and the mundane is even more prominent. The 9 worlds are connected in one line, which is the moment when TIE particles appeared. Martin kept correcting the timeline, and finally fixed the time at the moment when the 9 realms were connected, but it was Cybertron who replaced Asgard. In an instant, the fluctuation of TIE particles burst out suddenly. In the depths of the universe, the Dark Elves who were devastated by the death of the Court of Life suddenly stopped at the moment, and turned their heads in shock to look in the direction of the world tree. What happened? Why is there a smell of TIE particles? It can't be wrong. Our monitoring equipment has already produced a response, but now is not the time when the 9 realms are connected together, unless Malekith's complexion is ugly, and he has the pain of losing the sacred object of the race. Unless Martin uses the time gem directly to forcefully modify the timeline, how does he know that the reality gem is within the world tree? No one can answer his question. The moment when the 9 worlds are in a line. With a loud noise, a peculiar frequency suddenly burst out, and the 9 worlds began to produce invisible resonance, as if a certain door had been opened. The volatility of TIE particles breeds and is instantly perceived by Martin. Very good, the last infinite gems. Martin raised his hand, and countless red dust roared towards him, and he cleverly danced in Martin's palm, very lively. Martin shook his hand suddenly, and the reality gem was already lying quietly in his palm in the next instant. He squeezed the reality gem and gently placed it on the magnetic glove, with a soft ding, and the last infinite gems fell to its proper position. In an instant, an unprecedented wave of terrifying energy suddenly broke out, and the entire universe trembled suddenly at this instant. Numerous cosmic laws have a shocking resonance, faintly producing roar responses with Martin's gloves. A power that far exceeds the limit of level single universe, slowly spreads among the 6 infinite gems that interact with each other and generate a geometric multiplier increase. At the moment, this overspec load is all over Martin. Even Martin, at the moment, felt a little pressure. This is the ultimate power above the single body. Even if it's not a true multi-level universe, it's not too far apart. It can be a battle. Martin looked down at himself, and saw that countless networks of horror energy gathered to materialize were spreading, drenching his entire body into a brilliant color. That kind of power above everything is really fascinating, even if Martin, with such a strong willpower, feels this power that can destroy and create everything. It is inevitable that there will be a wave of waves in his heart. But he was soon suppressed. Ordinary infinite gems are already so powerful, if you can get unique infinite gems. Martin lowered his head and looked up, and began to slowly reduce his strength. Everything began to fall silent. At this moment, a mirror image suddenly spread over, and Martin showed an unexpected look on his face. A soul radiating bright light all over, at the moment suddenly appeared, shuttled through the portal that had become unprecedentedly powerful, and came to Martin. Ancient One, came back from Waishandi so soon? Martin raised his eyebrows. It seems you are ready. There is still a slight smile on Ancient One's face, and if you feel it carefully, you can know that such an Ancient One has more amazing magical powers on the soul than before. Ancient One has become too strong. I'm afraid it has already begun to touch the lowest threshold of level single universe. What do you want to say, or what does Emperor Waishan want you to say to me? Martin raised his hand, the reality gem lit up, and a small planet was created in the flashing red light. Martin sat down and looked at Ancient One calmly. Ancient One looked at Martin, fell silent for a while, and said, "Sometimes, I am really curious about your origins. You seem to know many ancient gods very well. But if your origins are amazing, why are you in mine? Growing up in the universe. Weird." Martin sneered. "Emperor Waishan asked me to tell you that if you fail to defeat Sithorn but survive, he is happy to accept you. The magical world he created will have your place." Ancient One gave Martin a deep look. It is not possible for anyone to make the existence of such a diverse level universe like Wei Shandi extend an olive branch. Obviously, Emperor Waishan is also very interested in Martin. At least, there are parts of Martin that even Emperor Waishan can't see through. If this is the case, then I might as well go directly to Sithorn. Compared to Emperor Waishan, whose purpose is unknown, Sithorn has no brains, but at least he has the power to attract me. Emperor Waishan can give me what? White magic. I don't need that kind of ghost at all. Martin sneered again and again. He himself is the overlord mentality, and the invitation to write a big empty check can't be clearer. It's no different from shit. You really know Emperor Waishan? Ancient One whispered. Osit in the Trinity Waishandi is the god of white magic and one of the 4 chaos gods. Sithorn, the god of black magic, one of the 4 chaos gods. Osit and Sithorn are strictly siblings. But unfortunately, the two of them are rivals, especially in the battle of the second-generation gods that completely collapsed. Sithorn and the snake god Set were engaged in trouble. The entire second-generation god system was torn apart and a tragic civil war broke out. The end result is that the prosperous era of the second generation of gods ends. The power of the dead second-generation gods was finally split up and became the foundational power of the 3-generation gods, including Odin, Zeus, and Jade Emperor. I told you long ago that strength can be weak, but you must have a broad vision. Weak strength can be accumulated slowly, but if your vision is narrow, you will not even have the qualifications and opportunities to improve your strength. You will always only spin around in a small circle. Martin sneered, then, his eyelids twitched, and he slowly got up. Leave, Sithorn is here, and I can feel his disgusting black magic breath. If you don't leave, it will be too late. Martin looked at the terrifying shadow coming from the depths of the multi-universe, as if it had swallowed all the light, and spoke lightly. Good luck, Martin. Ancient One stepped into the portal, and in an instant, the magic of Emperor Waishan was activated to teleport Ancient One away in time. In the same place, only Martin was standing silently. He stepped on the little planet and watched quietly. The expression on his face was calm and there was a little more seriousness. Sithorn, such a strong you must be very worthy of setting off me. Martin suddenly clenched his fist. 6 rays of light emerged. In the dark, the entire universe began to boil, and a large number of laws were tilted toward Martin. This let Martin know that at this moment, he is the son of destiny, and is driven by the spontaneous operation of this universe. In the rule, the savior selected. Because only Martin is the most suitable, only Martin has the slightest chance of defeating Sithorn. Facing the end, even a whole universe will become flustered. Martin sneered. The shadow of huge amounts of appeared, and that terrifying figure was fast shuttled among the multiple, full of endless malice. The god of black magic has come to this tiny universe. When this ancient existence descended, countless beings screamed in the entire universe. All the lower beings affected by this terrifying shadow will have terrible drastic changes, their souls will be annihilated, their bodies will collapse, as if they had swallowed the most terrifying poison in the universe. This is the power of evil, from the power of Sithorn. It's here, the strange creature that can accidentally communicate and use my chaos force, and there is also that lowly creature that dares to insult the gods. Sithorn looked at the universe greedily. The huge shadow body shuttled through countless universes, and stopped at the moment before it came to this universe. His hands slowly stretched out, almost grasping the universe. Inside. The terrifying marvel Mephisto has arrived. This is a multi-level universe that grew from evil and darkness, crushing countless ancient gods, and paving the way for his majesty with the destruction of the endless universe. In an instant, the basic rule of the universe began to spontaneously distorted under the unconscious interference of this god, and all cognitions that should have been normal had a terrifying distortion. The lifespan of this universe, at the moment, is shortening at an alarming rate. The foundations that support countless galaxies are collapsing. Every moment passes, the outbreak of diseases in the entire universe becomes more and more obvious, making the universe unable to help it originally. Repel. He's coming. Numerous arrogant universe gods raised their heads one after another, trembling all over looking at the terrifying existence that was huge and terrifying. Their dignity, their arrogance, their future, at the moment, are being wiped out little by the god of black magic. The light was suppressed by the incomprehensible darkness, and the conservative was torn apart by greater sins. He slowly raised his head, and the blood-red eyes revealed bloodthirsty. The moment he saw it, he destroyed the universe law, broke the existing order, and spread outward at a terrifying speed. The life enveloped in it, even the gods of the universe, felt that their hearts and souls were disturbed. At this moment, countless beings who practiced black magic knelt down spontaneously, praying eloquently in their mouths, and worshipping the gods with enthusiasm, but unfortunately, their gods didn't care about their plans at all. I found you, my people, there is no need to escape, you were born to be my servant and master the magic of chaos. Sithorn's voice traveled through countless galaxies and directly reached a steel planet. Cybertron. Wanda's body trembled, her eyes suddenly lit up with a terrible red light, chaos force burst out, she let out a scream, and covered her head in pain. He is here, that guy is here. This universe will be destroyed. Destroyed, the future is doomed. Wanda, however, was discovered by Sithorn, the most potential and the best tool to use. As long as he is well trained, he can become a powerful fighter under his command in the future. Think about it, this low microorganism called Wanda can actually break through hundreds of millions of impossible boundaries to find possibilities, and finally communicate with his chaos force. So far, the entire multi-universe is just such a special human, which successfully aroused Sithorn's interest. Wanda's face was pale, her body trembled, the powerful magic power in her body was uncontrollable, and it spontaneously burned. Then chaos force burst out wave after wave, flying everything around her. Godless, a little bit overwhelmed by chaos, will be distorted, thinking is covered. The terrifying figure that enveloped the entire universe was watching her from a distance, full of strong malice. Wanda gave a sorrowful smile, staggering. At this time, a warm hand supported her. It's not a time to be discouraged, it's nothing at all. A figure walked out of the space-time vortex, and his voice was so flat that there were no other emotions. When the whole universe was shrouded in shadows, his performance gave people a sense of security. Orange, blue, green, yellow, red, purple. At the moment, the 6 bright colors burst out, sweeping the entire planet in an instant, and crushing the darkness that was permeating the vast expanse of power. As expected of Sithorn, it is a trivial idea that makes the entire universe begin to twist, extending in the direction of collapse. Martin held Wanda with one hand and stared into the distance, subconsciously tightening the power in his hand. Will you win? The red light in Wanda's eyes still didn't dissipate. A flash of yellow light relieved her of a large part of the pressure. Martin has been watching the distance all the time, staring at the terrifying figure billions of light years away. Hearing the words, he said lightly, I have never lost before, not before, now, let alone. 6 infinite gems arouse the power of the entire universe, fate converges, countless obscure hymns emerge, as if the entire universe is surrounded by Martin. Wanda stared at Martin blankly. Next second, Martin has already left Cybertron and stepped directly into the depths of the universe. There are 6 shining radiances surging around him, turning into beams of light rising into the sky. The fluctuations that erupted, in the first place, caused them. Sithorn's attention. This is the second time I have seen you. I don't know why. I have seen you die. Sithorn, be the new corpse under my seat. Lift my throne aloft. This is your lifetime glory. In every step Martin took, countless galaxies were crossed, and countless cosmic gods were ignored by him. It's just a bunch of rubbish, it's not worth paying attention to.